I think we should have understood earlier that what the end result has been is that we've taught Christians to live their life the same as non-Christians.
Mm.
And one of the big parts of that is to start treating marriage and children like they're a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And once that's a choice, you get into the discussion, is it pro-life or pro-choice? And then once the pro-choice discussion has evolved, it's like, well, is it pro-life or I want to kill my baby whenever?
Mm.
And it's the choice conversation goes from choice to outright, I get to do whatever I want to do and you can't tell me I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sort of tandem with that is the data is pretty clear on this, that most Christians don't think differently on these issues than non-Christians do on the whole, but kind of by the numbers, until you get to like really Orthodox communities of Christians, which is where there's like some hope for reproduction. Even like it's really only Orthodox religious communities that are still having children. Now, the funny thing about the LCMS is that in most situations, we would be considered part of that Orthodox religious community, but on this, we're not. And that's kind of weird. I regret that. I regret my former views on birth control and vasectomies. And I will say this, I talked to my son about this quite a bit on a lot of things. There's just a lot more information available today about what's going on that I didn't even really know about. Like when my wife and I were first discussing whether or not she should go on birth control, I don't think either one of us were aware of what the birth control pill actually does as far as ejecting a fertilized egg. I think if we would have known that, the answer would have been absolutely clear. No, we didn't know that. And when we first got married, it's not like I had Google in my pocket. I don't know how I would have found that out other than us asking the specific gynecologist or doctor who was doing the prescribing what's going on here. And I'm not even sure they would have known the answer. And so that's a little weird. Like we know that now, and maybe the Catholic Church always knew that, and that's why this is such a big sin, and I didn't. But I'm not using that as an excuse. I think if I would have thought through that kind of more robustly in my youth, some of that would have probably occurred to me.
Well, I think that's normal. I mean, I've heard one of my professors, Peter Scare, was big on this, and he would mention, he'd be like, yeah, for because he had 3 kids, and he's like, we just kind of did the normal thing and we never thought about it and none of this information was there. And he says, he's kind of saying the same thing as you, or he's like, I regret the stance that I had previously, particularly at the time when we were having children. And now all of this kind of information, and now, his eyes have been open to it and now he speaks about it. But that's, we did just kind of culturally speaking, we didn't know. And some of that was malicious from some people, not within our synod, I'm saying, but, they changed the definition of what conception meant. And it used to mean what we think of when like sperm hits egg. Yeah. And they changed it to implantation. That's what I've always thought about abortion is that,
life begins at conception. And I mean, I've thought that since my teens, and I just didn't put it together, the rest of it together. That makes any sense. I didn't sort of like organically chase down the rest of the positions to sort of come to what probably is the logical conclusion about them all. I did kind of live, once we were married, especially, like once we were married, and I did kind of fall into the how many kids you have as a choice model and all of that kind of thing. And to some degree, there's no getting around that. Like you can just not have sex for a period of time and, avoid your wife getting pregnant and that type of thing. But as I think about it now, like the problem is it's not a very far leap from it's a choice how many kids my wife and I have and when we have kids to it's just a choice. Like even after conception, it's just a choice. And it's not just a choice, it's a person.